Well, hello again, Steve here, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about a suggestion that somebody I know made fairly recently, and that is to talk a little bit about the Amish and how it is that they would have the strength of perseverance to get through the tougher times that we have. So in other words, what can we learn from them, I guess. So I just jotted down a few ideas, and maybe you want to research a little bit about the Amish if you're not familiar with them. Most people are. They are a form of Mennonite, I believe, Anabaptist. And in fact, I think Weird Al Yankovic did a song about Amish paradise once. And I remember one particular line which went something like this: "We're all crazy Mennonites living in an Amish paradise." Something like that. It's part of the chorus. If you hear background noise, scratches and whatever, I'm outside. There's cars going by. There's construction going on. There's the mic scratching on my shirt. I hope that's fine. All part of the thing, right? Okay, the Amish, they are people who sort of wall themselves off from the rest of the world, which helps in a pandemic, I guess. But they do a lot of manual labor, so they have skills, right? They have a lot of basic skills. They know how to grow their own food, raise their animals, shoe a horse, and all kinds of stuff. They can get by without a lot of modern conveniences, right? They probably don't have the internet too much and what have you, depending on the degree, of course, of how old the order is. But they do certainly have a lot of skills. And along with that is they certainly have a work ethic. I mean, I've known a lot of, not so much Amish, but I've known a lot of Mennonites, and even if they're not religiously Mennonite, they certainly retain their ability to work. That's for sure. They got this good old Protestant work ethic, and they get a lot of things done. Pretty much everywhere I live, you see these names like Weeb and Dewick and Neufeld and Neudorf and all that sort of stuff. These are Mennonites. Maybe not Amish, but usually they're the captains of industry wherever they are. They are a hard-working people. And that's something that we can learn from them, because developing a work ethic, sometimes actually if we don't have it, it's just a little bit of putting our nose to the grindstone until we get into it, and then we can find a labor of love eventually, and we just work. What is it, the old saying that somebody once said, find a job that you love and you'll never work a day in your life. It's because it becomes what we get up for, right? So another thing is they're old-fashioned, right? Which is, in other words, they're empiricists. They know what a man is, they know what a woman is, they know what a child is, and they're not usually gender confused, which means that they can focus on reality, right? And they don't have to mess around with all this political correctness, because they are an in-group, and they just, leave the world do what it wants to do, and they do what they want to do. And another thing is they choose to be Amish. Now you might say the kids are born into it, but they are Anabaptists. And what that means, I believe, is that they do adult baptism, which baptism, of course, is entry into the religion. So they allow people to become of age of reason, adult. They allow them to, move away and not be Amish if they want to, and many of them do. Many of them just come back, and they baptize in and they become Amish. So that's sort of a freedom aspect to it, which I think is important. The Crazy Mennonites. I made a note of that. I like that Weird Al Yankovic song. It's sung to the tune of Gangster Paradise, I believe, which was an old tune as well, which is a little bit different, of course. They believe in borders, which is important when there's a pandemic going around. So they live kind of on their own in a cloister. So they're not socially distant, but certainly they don't have to be physically distant, because they're all one big family basically, and it's be pretty hard for tyrannical governments to come in and say, hey, you guys have to, even though you're walled off, you don't let anybody come in and basically roam around on your property, you've got to separate yourself if you're all one family, right? I mean, it'd be kind of crazy. They don't really believe in government except for God, as far as I know, which is actually, if you read my book, I believe it was called Coffee Chat, if you ever have a chance to read it, it's about 2/3 of the way through. I lay out this schema, which is what I refer to as the God of equation, or the order of things. In other words, like men and women are on a plane of creation, right? And everything that we create is just that. It's what we create. But the thing is, we create things, and then we think that we are what we created. We identify with our careers and our this and that and our our wealth and everything else. But at the end of the day, what we are is children of God, you could say. And so the Mennonites are the Amish, at least the ones who practice what they preach, I suppose. They see God as their government. So therefore everything else is just some sort of a person who's deluded. if somebody thinks that they can govern over them. And they stand up for it because they've been heavily persecuted wherever they live, and they just keep moving. If they're heavily persecuted in one area, they don't give up. They just, some of them get killed and dragged over the coals and whatever else, and the rest just leave, and they go find somewhere else, some place that wants very productive people, and they move there. And they have a history of moving all over the world. Mennonites in general do that, right? And they are survivors for that reason. They don't really seem to give a damn what people think of them. They wear their weird looking hats and whatever, and there's something about that. There's something to be admired in somebody who says, I don't really care what you think of me. I'm just gonna live my life the way I'm gonna live it. And your attitude be damned. You're not talking about me, right? I mean, that's a beautiful attitude. Because at the end of the day, nobody's really talking about us. They're only talking about their own, what is it? They build a caricature of us in their own mind, and then they go around projecting that that's us and then talking about it. But if most people don't even know themselves, how the hell can they know us? So the Amish are kind of like that. They don't really seem to care. Well, I'm going to ride a buggy down the road whether you care or not, right? And keep on doing it. So they got that grandfathered in clause, which is a great old thing. And they know how to serve their customers. A little story here. See, my arms get a little tired. Little story here. These are not Amish that I'm talking about, but Mennonites in general, or actually Hutterites, which are a similar type. Well, they're another version of the Anabaptist sects. There's many. There's the Menno Simon's version. There's Hooter something, I forget. Anyways, they were all sort of Anabaptist breakaways from the Catholic Church back during the Protestant Reformation or something. I don't know when. I don't know the whole history of it. But anyways, these people are very similar. They're Hutterites, and there's a lot of them on the prairies. They live in communities as well, Germanic of an origin typically, and they're basically self-sufficient. Like, they don't even pay taxes. The individual person on their colony does not file income tax because they're kind of exempt. They're kind of like a native reservation. I understand they do their own schooling and stuff. When all this helps in a sort of a pandemic, because they don't have to shut down. They're like an insular nation in a way, and they can decide to do whatever they want basically on their land, because they originally moved there. And they were invited to move there because they're very productive people, under the understanding that they wouldn't be molested by government. So the government basically, for the most part, leaves them alone, which is just wonderful to see. Anyway, and they'll do anything. They're extremely handy people. They'll run machine shops and repair shops and woodworking shops and everything on their colonies. And this guy was driving along anyways, and he got in a car accident with a Hutterite pickup truck farmer. And the Hutterites got out in a very thick German accent, and they said, no worries, we take care of you. You don't have to talk to any government or whatever. And sure enough, a few miles, they went and got their tow truck or their tractors or whatever. They drove him home, took his truck or whatever, and a few days later, he had this immaculate, brand new truck back. They fixed up everything, they gave it a complete paint job, cleaned it up. It was better than it ever was, kind of thing. Never bothered mentioning anything to the insurance or the government or the cops or anything. They don't want to deal with that. They're of this world, but they live in this world, but they're not of it in a way. It's kind of admirable. Yeah, there's lots of problems within there. There's a certain of those groups, they have alcoholic problems and stuff, but that's the individuals, right? But the actual the ones who mean it, it's very admirable in a way, because they decide. What's admirable, I think, is that it's a group of people who've decided we're going to live a certain way of our choosing, not what somebody dictates to us. And you could say maybe they are brainwashed within the group, right? But it's interesting that it's sort of a micronation that exists within another nation. And I think we can learn from this. I think we can take that model in a way, and there should be more and more people who break away and form micronations throughout the world. And I think we're going to be going towards that. And I've predicted this before, that globalism has gone so far. And now nationalism is going to come back, but you're going to eventually see micronationalism. Because even a place like so-called Canada is basically an empire, right? Because it spans from one ocean to the other, and it's got groups of people who are, French and all these different people. And what is somebody living in Skidegate, the Queen Charlotte's, got to do with somebody living in, Chicoutimi, Quebec? I mean, it's like a world away. Why do they have to live under the same governance? Why can't they self-determine? And I think we're going to see more of that, and we think we can learn a lot from the Mennonites in this process. For the various reasons, like what the things I said, developing our skills, having a work ethic, understanding what society is built of, men, women, and children, right? And you know, believing in borders of private property, essentially, right? Because they are like a private property micronation in a way, which is interesting. And they're survivors, you know, willing to live in spite of what people would make fun of them about. I think that's admirable. So, inner genie, well, let's live the way we think is right, that we feel is right, that we know is right, in spite of what others say. Be strong, learn work ethic, learn skills. And I think we'll do a lot better. And we'll need that strength through the coming days, weeks, months, and years. Talk again soon. Bye for now.